All right. I've maybe gone a bit too far with this little mini series here. This is a PC case. I know, it looks like maybe a laptop would be in here or something, but apparently this is a case that supports up to microATX motherboards, and it's made out of wood. Yeah. We're gonna find out. You can see it's from a company called CyberWood, which I suppose makes some sense, and the product photos made it seem appealing, so to speak. It's unique, and the fact that you have to, assemble it yourself means that there's a bit more hands-on to this whole process. If you want to build a PC, I guess, from scratch, building the case is also a part that tends to be overlooked. So we're just gonna jump right into it. I'm excited to unbox it. We'll see what the quality of the materials is like, and I'll just give you my raw feedback as we build a system in this CyberWood microATX case. Are you ready? Stay with me.
To get rid of that annoying Windows activation watermark, head on over to VIP SCD Key and purchase a Windows 10 Pro OEM key for a fraction of the price of retail. Just use a secure payment method like PayPal, enter your product key into your PC settings window, and say bye-bye to the watermark. And be sure to use our offer code SKGS for a sweet discount.
So, let's unbox, shall we? Very curious how this is all packaged. I'm assuming it's all laying flat, just individual panels. And I'm also curious if this is real wood or not, or at least feels like real wood. I won't mind if it's plastic or, well, I suppose I shouldn't go that far. If it's a plastic case, for the money we paid for this, I'm gonna be a bit disappointed. But, if it's like some, I don't know, texturized steel or whatever, it still makes it unique. But the impression I got was that these were actually wooden panels. This is not coming out. Holy cow. Eventually I'll figure out how to unbox things. There we go. And wow, this is really something. It looks like this is real wood. I'm pretty shocked. Boy, does this company love the saran wrap though, I'll tell you what. So these are definitely lightweight, nothing like super, I mean, this isn't like mahogany or teak or anything like that. Not that you should expect that in a case in this price range. We can see the little individual layers there, just pressed wood. Kind of has the impression of like particle board. And you can see you've got instructions actually baked into these panels. So this, I'm assuming, is for the rear, because this is your cutout for rear I/O and your motherboard. Extension cords and like marking which way is up and which way is down. It's it's definitely different. Now, because I'm an intellectual, I've decided to forego the manual. Who needs those for assembly? It looks pretty straightforward. Okay, maybe not. Luckily, they include one. And there are up to 14 steps, so that's just great. Turns out I was actually on the right track. I should have started with the base first. You can see we've already got the feet installed. You have to do all this yourself, by the way. Then you use these small metal cubes to lock all of these side panels in place. And here we go. So we've got a decent amount already constructed. You can see we've got these little metal cube things that hold all of the panels in place installed. Some of them are fully functional right now, but of course we've got to get the left and right side panels on, and I think that'll add a bit of structural integrity to this because it's a bit lacking right now, and I am slightly concerned about the weight of the entire system in here, just because this isn't like high quality wood by any means. Again, it looks just like pressed board. You can buy like entire sheets of this stuff for maybe like 10, 20 bucks at Home Depot. So we'll see. So this is what you'll get in the box: 2 USB 3.0 Type A ports and a microphone jack along with a headphone jack in the middle. You'll also get these power and reset buttons, but let me tell you, there is something about, this click is the most satisfying I've ever felt for a power button on a PC. This is just, I could do this all day. Oh, I love it. Pretty straightforward. Oh, and I love that button. Just gotta finish tightening things down back here. For the platform, we're opting for a B660. This is a microATX board. Remember, the case only supports up to this form factor. Easy does it. We'll gently drop her in. Of course, running with the good stuff, Corsair Vengeance DDR5 16 gig modules a piece at 5600 megahertz. And for our cooler, running with a miniature Noctua NH-L9i designed specifically for the LGA 1700 socket. It's compact, but it looks really good. And here we are, it's all looking very nice. I love how compact this entire platform is. Pcie just showed up in the shot for a split second there. Let's get this installed into the case, and then we'll get the power supply in there, which, well, Pcie, would you stop hitting the tripod? It's gonna be a bit odd getting the PSU in here because it mounts up front and vertically, so yeah. Hey, Pcie, go. Hey, could you not hit the camera, please? Thank you. This is gonna be such a weird install. Doing this on wood, it just feels, I don't know, off. I'm not totally used to it. And the fact that this whole chassis is flexible, like to a degree that I'm slightly uncomfortable with. I don't know. We'll see how sturdy it is when we stand it up. It's getting there. Still quite a bit of flex there that'll straighten itself up when the left panel's installed. You know, I like the idea a lot. I will say at this point, it feels a bit cheap. Kind of reminds me of that that time that I tried to build a PC inside of a cardboard box. I'm not trying to compare this to a cardboard box. Obviously, this is a much better quality product, but compared to steel products that you can buy for similar prices, this just feels flimsy and kind of like an afterthought. The assembly process, I think, is quite cool, but I'm not sold on this yet. So we'll see. We'll get the other components in here. Again, like I said, the power supply is going to be the tricky one. We have to install that from above, and I've got all this hardware here to help out with that. So let's see let's see what happens. So you start out by installing these larger standoffs you can see here, and then we have to screw the power supply in from the top to the case. This is the part that's going to be kind of interesting because there's a lot of weight that we're going to put on the top panel, and it's already flexible as is. By the way, this case does support up to full-size ATX or standard power supply sizes, but this is an SFX one, and I just wanted to see if this would help out a bit in terms of the cable management and the space available. This is already proving to be a very weird way to install a power supply. But it is what it is. Also remember, you'll want to connect your AC cable before getting this up there. I made that mistake. It's gonna be difficult to wiggle that in once the power supply is already pressed up against the top panel. You can see that using an SFX power supply is actually gonna help you a bit in terms of clearance, airflow. The fan's not gonna be pressed right up against the front panel. Shouldn't be too big a deal either way because this is a large ventilated area. And the smaller the power supply, the more potential clearance you'll have for your graphics card. You can see in this case here, the power supply is not going to be a hindrance at all, although the cables might be depending on the kinds you're using. I had an issue where the 8-pin EPS for the CPU was not long enough in this unit to reach from behind, so I had to run the whole thing in front and on top of the motherboard, which looks a bit silly. Not a big fan of that. I was able to get my 24-pin wiggled behind the large cutout here. This is where they intend for you to route your power supply cables. Just make sure that your units are long enough. Most ATX power supplies will have long enough, 8 pins, but if you're going the route I went with SFX for the intention of keeping things nice and, roomy in there, might not look best if you have short cables. Okay, I caved. ATX units in here now, and actually this is a pretty cheap one. It's like a EVGA 600 watt, 80 plus. You can find these for like 30 bucks on Amazon. So just wanted to show you, what an average size unit looks like in here, and I think we're still gonna have okay clearance. I don't plan on using a beefy card anyway, but just keep that in mind. The longer ones will definitely cut off from some of the bigger graphics cards you could fit in here. Now, something that is just blatantly missing here, it's actually multiple things if you wanna look at it that way. Zip tie points. I don't have any here. Unless I didn't get something in the box that you normally get, I don't see any cable zip tie area. I mean, I guess I could just wrap them around these little cutouts, but these are intended for like 3.5-inch drives and 2.5-inch drives. If you're populating all of these, you're just gonna have to kind of make do with some janky cable stuffing. That's about all we've got going on here. So I think the only solution here, this is so cringe, is just to shove everything in and call it a day. just like that. The good thing is there is plenty of cable management space behind the motherboard tray for us to do this, even with power supplies that don't have modular cables. But it just bothers me. You guys know, if you've been watching the channel a good while, this is not how I normally do things. And it's not what I'd recommend you do either, if you can help it. This case kind of leaves me with no other choice. So we're just gonna tuck them away and forget. The last piece of the puzzle is our graphics card. This is an Aorus RTX 3060, and well, she's beefy despite the board only extending to here. All the rest of this is just a heat sink, and that's supposed to keep the card extra cool. This is a larger card. It's gonna be more of a worst case scenario for this case, and that's why I'm using it, just so you can see what the constraints will be. Now, funny enough, these Pcie slot covers are also made of wood, so we kind of just have to wiggle them out like we would in some cheaper steel cases. Let's see if I can, oh yeah, I feel like I just broke some stuff I shouldn't have, but that's what it says to do. Just punch them out, and now we can secure our graphics card. Easy does it, and yes, running into a bit of size constraint, but yeah, I mean, it works. It doesn't look terrible. I still need to figure out how to secure this card. There's some sort of clip they give you, and I think that's what we're gonna have to use. So the manual says I'll need to break off a couple of these arms. I guess this is upside down, so the text is gonna be showing. So it'll look like that, but we need to break these two fingers off so that the card can be propped up by this one below it. So let's see now. Prop up the card, and then we need to hold this in place while we tighten it to the case. This is kind of awkward. Something like that there. There we go, and then one more down below. Last thing to do then is get this left side panel on. You can see it consists of two layers here. So the wood on the exterior and then this acrylic panel underneath. Make sure you remove both sides of the film so that it's fully transparent. And this will be ready to go. We can turn it on for the first time.
The Corsair HS65 surround gaming headset delivers all-day comfort and sound with memory foam leatherette ear pads, lightweight aluminum reinforced construction, and Dolby Audio 7.1 surround on both Mac and PC. You can even use iQ software with Sound ID to customize audio profiles for unique experiences in-game and in chat. As always, you can learn more by clicking the link below.
Ooh, there's like no clearance here for cables. Be very careful about this. I almost snapped the wood because I was trying to jam this HDMI cable into the card. Not really a huge fan of that. They need to make these cutouts wider if they're gonna insist on making them as thick and rigid as they are. I believe I already flipped the switch and the power supply, so we should just be able to power it on. Yep. Oh, I love the way this power button feels, by the way. I said that like tons already, but it's such a tactile click. And there we go, straight into the BIOS. That was super, super fast, a really fast post. But yeah, so I mean, we don't have much RGB. I don't think there's any RGB at all on this, actually. The graphics card, for some reason, is not lighting up yet. Maybe it needs to boot into the operating system for that to kick in. But yeah, I mean, you could line this case with RGB. I don't know how well it's gonna look against wood because wood's not very reflective. This isn't like a glossy wood or anything. It's very, it's got texture to it. It feels like wood to the touch, so it doesn't feel like it's been treated in that kind of way. But yeah, I guess you can see fans spinning, so there's that. And I should also mention the power button and the reset button both have built-in LEDs. So the one up top here is power LED. Of course, that's lit up white as it is. The reset switch is for hard drive LED, so that'll be another ring below here that'll start flashing when the hard drive or whatever storage drive you have in your system is running and reading or writing files. You can see just barely inside there, the power supply pressed right against this honeycomb looking grill. The fan is pulling in air, I can feel it, pretty much unhindered, so I think we're in the clear there. You could mount another 120 below, and then you get your two mounts up top. Only support for up to a 240mm AIO up top, so keep that in mind. In fact, you might be hard-pressed to even fit a 240 up top because there's not a lot of clearance here at the rear, and sometimes radiators tend to extend a bit beyond just the fan dimensions. And then you get a 120 at the rear as well. You can mount fans below if you want to have fans pull in air directly to the card. That could be a thing if you want. And again, if you want like an open air style case, you could just remove the acrylic panel from the left side outright, and then everything will breathe without issue at all. I do recommend keeping the left side panel on though for the sake of stability, because the case isn't all that sturdy without it. Oh, I did split something up there. Okay. Well, at least we know where the limit is. Look, this case is an interesting one. It was fun to assemble from scratch for maybe the first like 30 minutes. After that, it became a bit old. The idea that the case needs to be another part of the assembly process is a cool one on paper, I think, for us DIY enthusiasts, but I think when you know that the case can only be assembled one way, it does feel a bit futile in the end, because you can't customize it, you can't make it your own. Whereas if you're building a PC with individual parts, right, you purchase those parts. So the way it all looks when it comes together, that's the exciting part, right? Because you are responsible for the parts that went into it, and you might be curious as to, you know, how the system ends up looking when it's all said and done. Whereas in the case of, well, a case, here it can only be assembled one way, and so you kind of know what the end result will be. And I think that kind of ruins the fun of it all. So I was on board with the whole, hey, this is great to, you know, assemble yourself, DIY, I love it. I think now it's not really all that fun. I don't think you should buy this. I think there are many compromises, not just aesthetically, but functionally, just a lot of stuff you're going to be giving up. There are plenty of very high quality microATX cases on the market. I shouldn't say plenty, there are many more ATX than there are microATX, I would say, but there are other options that I think are a lot better for you. I'm going to pull up the price here because if I recall correctly, this was over $100, which is why I'm saying what I'm saying here. So the CyberWood microATX mini tower wooden computer case. You can buy it for, oh wow, they marked it down? They marked it down even more. Okay, this changes things. Wow, this is surprising. I'm glad to see that they've adjusted. They didn't even know we were making this video. I just bought this on my own. So you could buy this right now for 70 bucks, plus you get a 5% coupon as well at checkout. So that's what, $3 or so, $3.50? This brings us to like the mid-60s. This actually isn't all that bad for 60 bucks. I know some folks are gonna say, oh no, I'd much rather take a generic, you know, steel mid-tower or whatever for the same price. And there are many, yes, objectively better, I think, in the utility sense of the word, cases out there. But this has just, it has an appeal to it that I wouldn't pay a premium for, but at 60 bucks, it's not a bad experience for 60. I'm pretty surprised that the price came down as much as that. I think I paid 90 bucks or $100 for it, and right now you can get it for almost half that. That's not too bad. The reviews seem to be decent. Those who've built in it, you know, knew what they were getting into ahead of time. So if you're aware that this will require assembly before use, and that it is a non-premium wood material, pressed wood it looks like, then I don't think there are going to be too many surprises here. The only real issue I have with it, apart from the fact that it looks weird, is you don't get cable management ties at all for the back. You just kind of have to shove everything back there. I don't really like that, but everything else, if you can get around the hardware constraints, is acceptable enough. I think it's sturdy enough. It's not like super unsafe. Of course, with the left side panel off, it is a bit flimsier, but overall, the design works, airflow's fine, and it's not super expensive either. So there's that. I'll leave you just with one other remark. Price aside, this is not something I would personally elect to build in if I wasn't doing it for YouTube, just for the sake of, you know, me being curious. I wouldn't just jump on this and say, oh, this looks really cool, I want to have this on my desk. it does still seem a bit cheap to me. And I know that's an opinion that not everyone will agree with, but I feel the need to express it anyway because some of you might value that opinion. And I think that despite the price being decent, it's just not, yeah, it's not my cup of tea. It's not something I would want to run on my desk, my setup. With that in mind, you can find this case linked below if you want to check it out. I mean, 60 bucks, to some that's not a ton of money just to throw into maybe a curious build project. If you just want to know what it's like to build in yourself, you can check it out there in the video description. If you enjoyed this one, give it a thumbs up, consider subscribing, and I suppose I'll catch you in the next one. Oh, by the way, other parts that you saw, that you see right now in this build, you can also find in the video description. I wanted to mention that. If you want to build a system like this, maybe choose a different case or vice versa, all that should be down there. Thanks so much for watching. Again, my name is Greg, and thanks for learning with me.